Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we haven't been down to St. Pete in a while. Yeah, got to get down there. How are you? Are you close to the pier? Or are you like on the other side?
I'm in Seminole right now, which
Okay.
is Barrier Island. So I'm less than 2 miles from Madeira Beach,
Oh, yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah. Do you get there often, or are you like in the mode now where you don't really go as much as you once did?
So I have in my calendar, so I have a checklist of things I want to do every day. And in my to-dos is get to the beach at least once a week. It's a weekly reminder. So if I don't get there,
Yep.
like, oh, go put your feet in the sand, even if it's for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we can get to a beach in about 35, 40.
yeah.
A nice beach, like Clearwater, Dunedin, somewhere down there, is like an hour 15. So it's just far enough that we're like, do we really want to drive and traffic, but we love it. And so that's a great idea. Put it in the calendar and make sure, something that happens.
Put it as a task, a weekly task. So if
Yep.
I don't go, it's a reminder on Sundays to just get my feet in the sand for 30 minutes.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Okay. Well, to give you an idea, the podcast we use a lot as a lead magnet. So when I'm out speaking, training leaders, typically it's a lot of financial advisors, insurance agents, client focused type leaders, people who are meeting one-on-one with people. We use the podcast to say, hey, keep growing your skills, listen to these great interviews. So majority of our listeners fall into that category. The other pie would be other speakers, trainers, coaches, influencers. So it's probably 75 to 25, those two. I'll kick us off, welcome you, let you share a little bit of your story, go into the conversation. If you say anything that you just don't like it and you want to edit it out, just put up your hand. I'll write down the timestamp. No worries. We'll edit it. I think it's happened twice, maybe in 220 episodes. So it hasn't really, just be you, conversation. We'll laugh, we'll have fun. But also, my hope is for these conversations is they add, some kind of spark to a leader listening going, oh, okay. Yeah, I could do that. That could help me. And then at the end, I'll ask you some rapid fire questions and then we'll go from there.
And I love that you added fun.
Yes.
Fun matters. And that's
Yes.
what comes through. So if we're not having fun, what are we doing?
That's right. That's right. Well, as you know, some bank meetings that I go to, some are not very fun. I'm like, I don't know if people really want to be, a part of this.
I think it's, and you asked one of the questions to prep. We think we have to be one person here and one person there. And that's not how it has to go. So
Right.
you can bring some fun into banking.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Okay. Well, let me just make sure I have everything I need. Let me put my do not disturb on. Perfect. And then, even if your name was John Smith, I always, say your name and then I let the guest know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Emilee Tucker. Perfect. You'd be surprised. Sometimes, yeah. I had a woman on last week. I interviewed last week. She was in Dubai, and she speaks like 7 languages, but it was her first all English podcast. So it was, yeah, it was awesome. But her name was very difficult to pronounce. So yours, piece of cake.
Easy, easy, easy.
Okay, awesome. We'll go ahead and get started.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Well, have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things as a leader, yet something still feels off? Or maybe you're stuck and you can't quite get to that place where you feel like everything's going right. Or maybe you've kind of been struggling with some surface level communication, struggling to build trust. You're constantly trying to fix yourself and you don't really get that real fulfillment. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're not alone. That's what we're diving into today. The missing piece isn't just more information, it's self awareness and alignment. And I can't wait for this episode because as leaders, we need to dive into these topics and have real conversations because we all have places where we feel that way and we need to know how to get out. And that's why today I can't wait. I'm joined by Emilee Tucker. She's a leadership coach, transformational speaker. She helps professionals lead with authenticity, confidence, and connection. We're going to dive deep into how self-awareness transforms our leadership, our communication, our relationship. I met Emilee through a mutual friend. We had a great conversation. I think I was in an airport somewhere, and I've been looking forward to having her on the podcast. Emilee Tucker, welcome to the Speak with People podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, it's not often I get to interview leaders in a super close proximity, but we're probably only 40, 50 miles apart. Of course, Tampa traffic is probably a little bit longer, but
Miles and time are very different.
yes. Yes. And I won't share more of your story, but you're a former northerner as well, who's
Right.
now enjoying I talked with someone this morning from my old stomping grounds in Michigan, and it was 20 degrees. And I was complaining because it was 62 on my morning walk. So,
Yeah. So I'm originally from Connecticut. I've moved to Florida about a year ago, and I am loving the weather. I'm adjusting rather well.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, tell us a little bit more about your story before we hop into the conversation, who you are, what you do, what's kind of brought you to this place.
Yeah, so my name's Emilee Tucker. Again, I am the emotional breakthrough coach. And what brought me here is truly leaning into my curiosity. I say that leadership and this work found me. I didn't find it. I have a background in healthcare and healthcare administration. And I knew there was something more. So I leaned in, continued to lean in and learn about who I am, which meant different assessments, different tools, different quizzes, all of them. I've probably taken them all because I wanted to find out how do I become better? And with that, I went on for my master's degree, and that's organizational effectiveness and leadership. It's a very long name. They've since completed it. And I love leadership. I love people. I love continuous improvement. And with that joy and that passion, it led me to find gaps in leadership. And I find that the soul is the missing piece to leadership.
Wow.
And from my own journey and the tools and the resources and the things that I've been able to acquire and learn, I want to share that with the world. I want to be able to give these tools, these resources, insights so people they're leaning into their authenticity. They're leaning into how do I find alignment and joy and bringing that together with leadership. So I love the work that I do and really my own journey is what's fueled my passion to share it with others.
Wow. I love that. The soul is the missing piece of leadership. Just absolutely amazing. That's powerful. Right off the get go. Well, when we talk about authenticity in leadership, why do you think? And I know I've been there, I've been in rooms where I've had conversations with leaders, but a lot of us actually end up struggling to kind of show our true selves in our career. Maybe it's with our team members, with our leadership. Why do you think that is? What is the block there for us?
So I find that it's fear. So fear in many different capacities, whether it's fear of being seen, fear of showing up, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough, maybe even fear of being too much.
Mm-hmm.
So this deep rooted level that can come through and you think about energy, right? What are you fearful? It's going to stop you. That's going to pause you. And you're not then able to show up as your whole person. We think about expectations that are placed on us. We think about the conditioning that's placed on us, society, family, work, and we want to, as leaders, hit those thresholds of expectations. Also, with that, you can lose a bit of yourself.
Mm.
And some of the cultural things that come to mind are when someone's like, my parents have always wanted me to be a doctor, or my parents always wanted to be a lawyer, but they
Mm.
really want to be an artist.
Yep.
And there's that disconnect of what's pulling me as a leader and what do I truly want to be able to be doing. So
Wow. Wow. I love that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah,
that's powerful. Just thinking about the amount of conversations I've had and I've had with myself about the other expectations that other people had, and how unique that is. With your time in the corporate world, do you kind of a big question here, sorry. Do
go
you
for it.
think the corporate structure is part of helping form people who don't want to kind of break out of that box? Like it just helps, hold people in. So just kind of sit in your seat, do your job, move on. Is that part to blame or not really?
I think there's many pieces of it, right? So I think there's a need for structure, right? If you think of even energies, there's the yin and yang, the feminine, the masculine. I think there's a need for structure for sure. And we all have different pieces of the puzzle. We're all a different piece. So someone may be really great at being in that system and that structure, and then there's others, they need more autonomy. And what I do find at the end of the day is really it's your own responsibility of where do you fill in those gaps in those positions that you take, right? So I think corporate can be great, and it's great for many people, including leaders. Then there's also places where be the leader, have that autonomy, build that business, branch out. So it really depends on where you are, where you're going, what's your skill, and how do you want to enjoy your life? How do you want to spend your day?
Mm.
And are you in the right place to go in a different direction? There are people that are stuck in a position that they don't enjoy, and that can take away from their quality of life and their skills. So looking at yourself and where do you want to be? Is it in a corporate position? Great. Is it a really good fit in that corporate position? It's a matter of asking yourself the right questions.
Wow. Okay, so maybe another. And I didn't give you this question, so I apologize. But just as you were talking, it just brought up this idea. I went back to an upstairs conference room at a bank branch that I was leading a training at, and I talked to 5 women at the end of the table, and they had all been with the company 20 to 30 years. And I'm like, wow, like, is the company that great? Is that why you've been here? And one was like, yeah, they treat us pretty good. The rest were just their responses were about fear. Well, I can't leave now. I can't do, I can't, it was all that fear just kind of came up. The fear of the unknown. Do you, and they were all probably in the late Gen X to boomer category. So my assumption, sorry if I'm assuming wrong, you are not in the late Gen X to boomer category.
That is correct. And that's a
Okay.
fair
So
assumption.
do you think I don't want to put a guess on it, but your generation then has a different mindset when it comes to, this idea of just stay in one place, doing it, kind of getting it done. Do you see a shift in the thinkers that you follow? What do you think about that?
I do. I do find that there's a shift. And I think the shift is the quality of life. How do I want to live my life? And that's a big, that's a big
Wow.
question. And even some of the things I go through with my clients is write your eulogy. How do you want to be remembered? What are you leaving behind? And I think that from the younger generations, we're finding that fear can keep people stuck and stagnant and comfortable, and they're leveraging that to then shift and change their own lives. And again, it's very much a mindset thing. It's a safety, it's a security. You think about the energies, primal, that's primal. That is like one of the strongest things is to break from your community, your society, those relationships that should in a way make you feel safe, it's a lot of fear when you start to shift away from that. Again, fear of being judged. I'm leaving this company. The company's great. The company's great. Why would I leave? But there's also so much more potential, but
Yep.
there is the unknown. So leaning into that trust is not only a skill, it's a mindset. And it's a huge game changer. And not everyone's ready for it for various reasons.
Right, right. Have you maybe too vulnerable? Sorry,
No,
I'm
no, bring it on, Jason. Bring it on.
throwing you for it. But have you had any of those? So I was in leadership young, was able to lead people. Now, I've got lots of gray hair and I'm not in that category anymore. But as you lead, I mean, as you coach, you're coaching people of all ages and stages. Have you had any of the situations where from the get-go, you just know the way that someone's communicating to you, they're communicating to you in a, kind of looking down at you because of your age, uh, manner? Like,
Stories about that. So when I shifted so I've had many shifts in my career. I at one point was managing an office and, talk about taking on a persona. I took on this persona because I know that a lot of people were judging me. I was young, I was short, I was this little petite blonde. Like who are you to run this office? And a lot of time, like they would ask, are you like, can I speak to the manager? And I'd come out and they were like, oh. What do you mean? And I do look younger than I always have. So that's been something I've had to battle. And the way that I deal with that is through my professionalism, is through my communication, is through that connection with other people. And I've experienced that in many, many times in my career. And I think the way is to just really lean into people, connect with them, learn the skill set, learn the knowledge so that you're able to then overcome that bias. Because at the end of the day, it is a
right.
bias questioning age. And, I think even getting a little witty can be fun. And when I shifted into my own space of my own career, my business, there were some really direct questions from people of how old are you? Like, what do you know about leadership? And I had to come through with some thoughtful responses, and it was a trigger. So I sat with that and go, how do I respond to this? A few were, I'm ageless and timeless. Thank you for thinking I look youthful. You know, and making light of it because people are curious and they may not know how to address it. And that's where that communication piece comes in, right? That's where a lot of the work that you do too comes
Yep.
in. We may not know how to say it.
Yep.
And that filter of they're just being curious, right? I love them where they are and I address it and I move it along. And there's a bigger issue. Do they find me credible? How can I actually move them through that conversation to shift to I am credible and have them think that?
Wow, that's powerful. It's
Yeah.
it reminds me of a story I heard once about Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, and how he would even at 88 or whatever he was, he'd bring a legal pad into every meeting and he would just take notes, and it didn't matter who was speaking, he wanted to learn from them. And I'm like, so it doesn't matter young or old, like we have to have that mindset where, I'm going to respect you as a leader. I want to learn from you. Let's shift for a second. Right when we started talking, you talked about how the soul is the missing piece of a leader. How do you recognize in your own leadership, your own self-awareness, boy, if my soul is, empty or hollow or damaged or, in a place where it's, it's impacting my leadership.
So I think getting curious with yourself and getting vulnerable. So
Mm.
with that is asking yourself reflective questions. Uh, that the word journaling has gotten a really interesting light, but I think there's such a power of the pen. And when you sit with yourself and you ask yourself really good questions, you're going to get those answers through that experience. And label it journaling, writing, what have you, to what feels right. And that brings me into the next step is somatics. Get connected with who you are. Ask yourself, how does that feel in your body? So a lot of what I bring into my work is somatics too. So asking yourself some of those questions, like, what do I feel like missing? And where do you feel it? Do you feel it in your gut? Do you feel it in your chest? And there's a few different modalities that you can lean into to be able to find some of that clarity. And it's not a one size fits all. It's really not. It's what's finding what works for you, keeping what resonates and leaving the rest. But getting vulnerable, asking yourself those tough questions to get some of those tough answers. And I say the quality of your questions are the quality of your answers. So ask yourself those quality questions, but also give yourself grace to sit with the truth of what's coming up for you. And
Wow.
the 5 why. Keep asking yourself, why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? And it's a process. Again, give yourself grace as you go through that. But self-reflection, I think, is the greatest tool in your journey.
Wow. And for some leaders, I think it's probably difficult to do that because we're at such a pace, or maybe we've ignored some of those feelings for so long that, we're just, okay, I got to keep going. I got to keep making it. But that process of slowing down and doing that, what to the managers listening, to the team leaders listening, what have you experienced in your corporate days? What have you experienced now as you coach teams to kind of help build that into the culture? Is there a way to build in some space and some time, to make sure, team members are asking some of those questions or have those kind of moments to process stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different things that managers and reports can be doing. I think allowing and scheduling that time in your calendar. We have stuff in our calendar all the time, and we hold these appointments with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's setting these appointments with ourselves.
Yep.
So whether it's Friday at 8 a.m., you take 15, 20 minutes, or maybe it's the end of your day, and find some balance, have that dialogue. And with that are the one-on-ones. I think one-on-ones with your team are incredibly valuable, and you find the cadence that works for you. And as a manager and as a leader, being accountable, holding that space, and finding a time that works for both of you and a modality that works. So, is it a Zoom meeting? Is it in person? Is it where you have a collaborative dashboard to be able to work on? So, it's a partnership in the corporate world to have that space and ask good questions. So,
Mhm.
I put myself back to my one on ones with my staff, and how can I support them? How asking simply that question, what feedback do you have for me?
Yep.
What's going well? What's not going well? Right? And it's okay to ask some of those questions. You also need to be ready to get those answers because you may not want to hear what they have to say. And that builds trust too. So there's
Right.
there's multifaceted to that answer.
Right.
Uh, but scheduling time with yourself, allowing that time and space, and also share those pieces that bridges you as a community and as a
You know,
team.
we as Speak with People, we talk a lot about how do we speak with our clients. So, we're constantly, and I had a guest on who did some research for his book that talked about when you sit down with someone, unless you've taken the time to be mindful about your next appointment, the research that he showed was that when you sit down with someone for the first 15% of the meeting, your brain is still 85% engaged on what you were doing just before that. And for me, I've used that as I'm with a lot of managers who meet with client after client after client, employee after employee, and they don't use any time, any break time, any time to, and they wonder why they go into each meeting feeling exhausted, not remembering what, the meeting with them last week was about. And what you just talked about was so brilliant. We put stuff on our calendars all the time for work, but then our own personal life, it's like, oh, I never thought of that.
Holding the boundary for yourself, right? And if you don't hold that boundary, no one else will.
I love that. What do you think are some of the common roadblocks, mistakes that you see in leaders who maybe their soul is a bit damaged and that's coming through in their leadership. So when they communicate with that damaged soul, what do you think are some of the signs of a damaged soul in their communication?
Yeah, I think when we react rather than respond,
Oh,
right, there's power in the pause. And we do come from a society where we need answers right now. And we get to choose to do things differently. And what I will say is when you feel, and I don't love this word, but I'll use it right now for reference, trigger. When something just sparks you, it's okay to pause. It's okay to say, I'd like to have this conversation a little bit later. And that's where the self-reflection piece comes in.
mhm.
And you think about self-awareness, you're moving from that self-awareness space to then a new choice to the self-management. So you can be triggered, but if you don't take time to pause and recognize that and start to shift yourself over to self-management, you're going to continue to do it. And that if you're a leader, if you're a manager with other people, you're going to eventually start to disengage people,
Mm.
not necessarily going to give you feedback. Because if they know that's how you respond when they tell you XYZ, they're going to tell you less and less of that. That breaks away the engagement, that breaks away the trust, that breaks away that collaboration. And unknowingly, you could be potentially doing that when you're reacting versus responding. And give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, to ask for feedback. I think that's a huge piece too, is that as leaders, one of the things we don't do enough is asking for feedback.
Mm.
May not want the answer, may not want to know what we're doing. We're not doing so great. And I give the model of start, stop, continue. If you're not able to really sit with asking for direct feedback, ask the question, what can I stop doing? What can I start doing? What am I doing well? And slowly building that muscle will allow you again to shift from reacting to responding because you're getting that in those moments where it's not emotionally charged.
Mm.
So some tips and tools there.
That's brilliant. I love it. As we ask for feedback from people,
Yeah.
is there a kind of a bullseye of who we should go for, or is it, just across the board, ask anyone? What
I
do you think
think
about that?
I think you can be strategic with it, right? I give the response of I wouldn't take advice from people I wouldn't change lives with or places with, right? So take that with a grain of salt, right? But you also, if you're a manager, you want feedback from your team. You also want feedback from those that you report to.
Yep.
So it's like a muscle. It's doing reps in the gym. The more you ask for feedback, the easier it is for you to do that. And there's this delicate balance of the closest people to us, how they deliver feedback, and also the people that we're working with. So I would say just start. If you focus on one person asking for feedback regularly and cascading out, find a need in what makes sense for you because you are moving out of your comfort zone. So challenge yourself. Who can I ask for feedback today? Who would give me valuable feedback?
Oh, I love that. I find that when I ask for feedback from someone, it's really effective if I cross my arms and kind of look with a scowl at them as I get ready to receive the feedback.
That
Just
body
kidding.
language, they're like, oh, they're like, am I in trouble?
Yeah, like but isn't that amazing the power of words? I mean,
Mm.
we kind of have this like it's just words, but then I mean it could take any leader. I mean, it could deflate it. The right word can deflate any leader. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so I give the example of the word but, and this is a simple shift for leaders to use the word and replace, excuse me, to take the word but out and replace it with and. And this is one example. That was really great, but it completely negates the statement.
Oof, right?
So just the power of that one word changes the message. And as a leader, words matter. As person. Words matter, right? And if you're in charge of other people and you're connecting and there's projects, that simple shift from but to and gives you a different impact.
Mhm.
So the power of words.
Boy, that's so true. Some of those tiny little skills can increase your leadership influence when you know how to use them right. It's it's just incredible. So often we as leaders, if we're not careful, we can, just like you said, undermine everything good that we just said because they're waiting for the negative and they're like bracing, and then it's yesterday I led a webinar for financial advisors, how to use steady words and unsteady. The last couple of weeks have been a little volatile, in the markets, and how do you connect, how do you communicate with your clients and be confident? And the thing that I learned years ago from a boss, especially like if you're communicating something difficult, or say you're letting someone go, super, super tough, to not do the, hey, Emilee, you are phenomenal. Like literally one of the best that's ever worked for me. I've loved it. It's just been amazing, but it's just not going to work out moving forward. And today's your last day. This manager was like, don't start with the good because they're already bracing, like just tell them, hey, and then lead into it. Even some of those shifts, it just helps our leadership in incredible ways.
Yeah, it's you, it's not me, right? I bring a lot of dating analogies into my world. It's like, just be honest, just share with me.
Yeah.
And I think it's the also the platinum rule. Treat people how they want to be treated. If this is heavy, bring that to the surface. Say,
Yep.
I'm going to share some news with you that isn't easy for me to deliver, and be honest about it, because it's not easy for anyone in those situations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So let's talk for a second. Are there some practices? We talked about scheduling some time for ourselves, figuring out some of those kind of things. But are there some daily or weekly practices that, uh, if we add them into our leadership routine, into our, personal routine, that could help us, remain in the same, into a better mindset, bring healing to our soul, those kind of things?
Yeah, so I think breath. So I've asked this to a lot of people throughout the years. Have you taken an intentional breath today?
Ooh,
Just paused and taken a breath. And it's usually no. It's just take that few moments, take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, maybe do a few rounds of it. You're changing your physiology.
wow.
Something I love, and this is a funny little thing, is hold a smile, because your body responds to you. So just smile, hold a
Yep.
smile for 30 seconds, and you will see your energy change. So I think that's even something simple. You can hold a smile for 30 seconds. You can take a few breaths in between, allowing transition time. And if you're really tight on time, take 30 seconds. That will help to reset you. Just take a deep breath, pause, clear yourself. I'm going into this next meeting. I really, give yourself that time, even if it's 30 seconds to transition. You're going to have a better outcome with that next meeting if you're going again one to another. So there's these little tips and tricks that you can start to tap into your day. Breathing and movement is one of them. So
Wow, those are great. And it's uh, back when my older kids were younger, I coached other little league teams. Little league players hate doing the drills until you take them to a professional team and you see them warming up and they're doing the drills. It's the same thing for leaders. Like, some of us deal with such intense work that some of these skills seem like little league drills, but they're actually able to ground us and prepare us. And those are amazing. I love what you said about hold a smile for 30 seconds. You're right. It's hard not to, like, you know, still be pissed off afterwards.
your body will change just from that little shift. Like, if I'm having a bad day, just hold a smile. You get to change the day. Yell plot twist. Plot twist. Oh, this is exciting. I get to manage this. Great. I'm learning and I'm growing. You know, um,
I love that.
A calm sea doesn't make for a skilled sailor. So you do want these experiences of
Wow.
change. You do. It only makes you better.
Wow. Those are great. As we kind of wrap up near the end, how are some ways that we can keep working to improve our emotional intelligence? I know that, it's kind of laced throughout our conversation, but as we kind of wrap up, what are some ways that we can kind of keep our eye on our emotional intelligence? What are some ways that we can continue growing in our emotional intelligence, learning from it?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is asking for feedback. We all have blind spots,
Mm.
and being prepared to receive that feedback. Say thank you. You don't need to respond when you receive feedback. Take it in. That's where that self-reflection tool can be really, really great, especially in those moments. And ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What came up for me? How can I do something different or better today than I did yesterday? So self-reflection, asking for feedback, and I think just setting yourself up for the day.
Mm.
How do I want today to go? Right? Your thoughts become things. How do I want today to go?
Wow. It's amazing. It's I read about it in my book, but if you start the day off and you're immediately with, yeah, today's going to be horrible. This is going to happen, well, of course it's going to be. You're already convincing yourself, it's just, it's so powerful.
So start on a good foot. And again, if something goes awry, plot twist.
I will remember that. That is so good. I love that. Uh, I love it. Before I let you go, we ask all of our guests the same three questions. We're building this online communicators library. Our listeners know about it at speakwithpeople.com/skills library, but we fill it with all these great ideas. So that moment where you need, a new inspiration, you can go check it out. So for you, is there a speaker that when you hear this woman, this man, whoever it is, every single time you're like, wow, they just fill my cup. I'm excited. I can't wait to tell somebody about this speaker.
Yeah, so I love Brene Brown because of the work that she's doing. And she really bridges the gap with some of those pieces. I will say a second. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's more of a
Mm,
teacher in my mind than a speaker. Uh, his the work that he's doing is profound. So anytime he's sharing and learning and teaching, I'm leaning in. I want to learn more. So those are two of my personal favorites right now.
I love it. Is there a podcast that, if you're a podcast listener, not all of us are, but is there a podcast that's either guilty pleasure or development that you're like, oof, oh, every time I listen, it's just amazing. I got to tell somebody about it.
Yeah, besides yours, right?
Ah, well, thank you.
Besides yours. Love the School of Greatness, and I love how it's evolved. And there's simply a wide variety of topics, so I do like that. And they're real conversations, just like this, where it's real insight, real people, real problems. And at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we're going through the same things. We're all on the journey. We're going through a lot of the same things.
Yep. Love it. Lastly, you run into somebody, they're about to hop on a plane or a train or wherever, a boat to go to a desert island. What's the one book you send them with that you say you absolutely have to take this book? It's gonna change your life.
So I think Think and Grow Rich
Uh,
to Napoleon Hill, there's so many basic pieces in it. And again, if you're thinking about energetics, the power of your mind, it bridges a lot of those. And it is one of those books that I try to revisit every so often, whether it's once a year, because you're evolving, you're going to see and take away different things. So what I will also say, if you do have a book that you recommend and that you love yourself, go revisit it. Get some
mm,
nuggets out of it because you're a new version of yourself when you do.
I love it. Well, this has been just brilliant. I mean, thank you for opening up your wisdom, your vault of knowledge. And I know that this is going to be very impactful for our listeners. Where can they find you online? Where should we send them?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time. So you can find me there, Emilee, Emilee, if you're listening. I do spell it differently, Tucker, and also emileetucker.com.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes and in our Facebook group and on LinkedIn and all the places. Thank you again for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
So wonderful. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the speakers group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the Communication Skills Library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.